In the Kremlin, they're frantically tearing up and burning maps. Kupiansk, which propaganda already claimed to have taken, is still holding out. The Russians launch assault after assault, but the result is always the same. Piles of their dead and burned out equipment. The city is held in a vice grip by Ukrainian warriors. What's happening there right now? What kind of fighting is going on around the city? And why are Moscow's plans falling apart again? Watch.
Another lie from Russian propaganda has trapped the Russians in their own statements.
I can't show certain signs or say specific words live on air. But I understand that today, once again, Putin needs to be sent in the direction of the Russian warship.
Apparently, the top leadership of the Russian Federation forgot to take their prescribed pills. They imagined that their troops had blocked 15 battalions in the ISU, and that they have full control over Kupiansk in the Kharkiv region. This is what the so-called Chief of the General Staff Gerasimov reported during Bunkernov's visit to one of the command posts of the West Group.
The units of the West Group have liberated the city of Kupiansk and continue to destroy the formations of the armed forces of Ukraine that are encircled on the left bank of the Oskil River.
The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine refuted the Kremlin statement, explaining that counter-sabotage operations and special actions to search for and eliminate enemy sabotage and reconnaissance groups are still ongoing in the city and its surroundings.
As of today, Russian occupiers are only present on the outskirts. Things are going very badly for them there. I wouldn't say the situation there is easy, and accordingly, today it's not exactly rosy. No, today the defense forces there are making considerable efforts to carry out the necessary actions and block the enemy, not allowing them to further infiltrate and, in fact, to push them back from those tactical positions that the Russians managed to capture earlier. And this is happening gradually. We are pushing the enemy back from Kupiansk.
The Russian leadership deliberately makes such statements. First, they are trying to show Russians that they supposedly have achievements in Ukraine to justify their losses. Their economy is going to hell, but they want to prove that everything is going according to plan. This is stated by Yuri Fedorenko, commander of the 429th Separate Drone Systems Regiment Achilles.
The second goal of the Kremlin is to put pressure on Ukrainians. Similar statements make their way into Ukraine's information space, and it is Ukrainians who can be misled if they do not analyze the information. The third goal is to influence Donald Trump, who, Monsieur, does not understand the details. Back in Alaska, Putin convinced Trump that he would capture the entire Donbas and Kupiansk. That's why the Kremlin is now passing off wishful thinking as reality.
The Kupiansk direction remains a difficult spot on the map of Ukraine. In the city itself, the defense forces managed to tie up the enemy's offensive units without allowing them to impose intense urban combat. The enemy is suffering huge losses and cannot advance beyond the outskirts. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces continue to gradually, over a period of time, little by little, in a slow and steady manner,
Step by painstaking step, block by block, they relentlessly push the occupiers back to their rightful homeland. This ongoing process is steadily accumulating, and accordingly, in the foreseeable future, there will be a determined attempt to take complete and decisive control specifically over the vital logistics and the strategic location of Ukraine's courageous defense forces. In addition, the occupiers are using the so-called flag pumpkin tactic.
That is to say, when a small group of 2 or 3 individuals, perhaps a reconnaissance team, runs into a certain specific area of Kupiansk, which is located within the contested grey zone, that is, territory not firmly controlled by either warring side, they then proceed to raise the distinctive Russian tricolor flag, a symbol of their presence. They meticulously film all of this footage, and then they carefully present it as irrefutable, objective evidence, supposedly demonstrating and clearly showing that this particular neighborhood, a specific area of Kupiansk, is already directly and firmly controlled by Russian occupation forces.
Right now, the main task for both sides is to cut off or at least significantly complicate logistics. And despite all the difficulties of the situation, including weather conditions and a shortage of personnel, Ukrainian defenders are handling it masterfully.
This is the end for the Shahed. It's sensational. Britain and Ukraine are launching a secret project called Monster Interceptor, which will tear Iranian drones to pieces right in the air. Joint production has already begun. British technology plus Ukrainian fury. Total hell for the occupiers. Watch this.
Ukraine is strengthening its air defense not only on the front lines but on a global scale. In the United Kingdom and Ukraine, a historic licensing agreement was signed for the production of Ukrainian Octopus interceptor drones, developed specifically to counter Russian Shaheds. This agreement, as emphasized by Defense Minister Denis Shmyhal, marks a new stage in international military technical cooperation. When Ukrainian technologies become the foundation for mass production by partners in the defense coalition.
Mass production of interceptors is planned, which could reach several thousand units per month. The manufactured equipment will be delivered to Ukraine to strengthen the protection of our skies. Denis Shmyhal, Minister of Defense of Ukraine.
The Octopus project is currently in the final stage of negotiations and could be launched in the coming months. The British Minister for Defence Capability and Industry, Luke Collard, clarifies that the UK is preparing to produce about 2,000 interceptors per month and send them directly to Ukraine.
The United Kingdom is an outstanding leader in research, development and advanced manufacturing. That's why we can provide what our Ukrainian friends are lacking in this regard. We need to be fast and we need to be first. We're starting with drones for obvious reasons. But overall, Ukraine is an important partner for us in developing the technologies needed to deter Russia and rearm Europe. Luke Pollard, Minister for Defence Capability and British Industry.
For Ukraine, this agreement is not just about expanding drone production. It is an attempt to create a sustainable system to counter the mass Shahed attacks that the aggressor country launches against Ukrainian cities almost every night. The Octopus has already proven its effectiveness on the battlefield. It's compact, maneuverable, and inexpensive to produce. It intercepts enemy drones in the air and provides more flexible and rapid protection than traditional air defense systems. In Ukraine, 3 manufacturers have already received the necessary technologies to produce the Octopus. Another 11 are preparing their production lines, but the key factor is the international scale. Launching production in the United Kingdom makes it possible to move from dozens and hundreds of units to thousands of interceptor drones each month. Such a pace could for the first time bring the situation closer to a turning point in the drone war, where until now the numerical advantage has remained with Russia. At the same time, Ukraine is developing joint programs with the United States as well. There too, production is being set up for interceptor drones capable of destroying Russian strike UAVs. Washington has not specified whether this refers to the Octopus, but the trend itself is clear. Partners are moving to a formula of not only supplying, but also producing together.
Any military project, any project related to increasing the supply of weapons to the front, whether these are regular drones or interceptor drones for Shaheds, they are crucial for conducting full-scale warfare both in the air and on the ground. And projects of this kind, such as the joint production of the Octopus in the UK and Ukraine, are even more important for the Ukrainian side. They will not bring about a turning point in the war, at least not in the near future, let's put it that way. But at the same time, they can improve the safety of the skies for many, many cities.
At the same time, Ukraine is strengthening not only its defense front, but also its financial front. Kyiv and the International Monetary Fund have reached an agreement on a new 4-year support program worth $8.2 billion. As Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko emphasizes, these funds will help finance critically important expenditures and maintain macrofinancial stability. Without this, neither the production of weapons nor the resilience of the defense economy is possible.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
That's it, London is entering the game at full strength. A tough ultimatum from Britain, the new weapons are capable of breaking the front in just a few weeks. Putin is at an impasse, the Kremlin is in panic. And this is just the beginning. London is preparing a major turning point in the war. What exactly will deliver the fatal blow to the Russian army? Watch.
Because of its weak position at the front, Russia is attacking critically important targets in Ukraine. Civilian targets, destruction and casualties among the population. Over the past day, Russian troops have attacked energy facilities in several regions of Ukraine. Restoration work is ongoing at the sites of impact. A very important aspect in this matter is energy assistance from the United Kingdom. Understanding the situation, the country has allocated more than 14 million euros. Putin is trying to plunge Ukraine into darkness and cold as winter approaches. These treacherous strikes are not only an attack on Ukraine's security, but also a threat to the UK's economic stability and growth. London has announced the allocation of additional funds for carrying out vital repair work in Ukraine's energy sector to help Ukrainians this winter.
Russia has made Ukraine's civilian energy infrastructure a target in this war. Now, as we enter the cold winter, they are intensifying their brutal attacks on energy and heating networks, while Putin tries to intimidate the Ukrainian people. However, Ukraine continues to demonstrate exceptional resilience despite all the hardships.
The funding for restoration will ensure uninterrupted lighting and heating in Ukrainian homes, hospitals, and schools.
We are grateful to the United Kingdom and Prime Minister Keir Starmer for extending humanitarian and energy support to Ukraine, as well as for the announced energy assistance package. At a time when Russia is increasing the number of attacks on civilians and critical infrastructure, such solidarity is extremely important.
London continues to put pressure on Russia through sanctions as well. He announced new restrictions for the Kremlin, which will be gradually implemented throughout 2026. This is a continuation of sanctions against the oil giants belonging to Putin's associates, Rosneft and Lukoil.
They pose a threat not only to Ukraine's security, but also to the economic stability of the United Kingdom itself. Ukraine's security is our security. Together with our G7 partners, we stand side by side, supporting Ukraine and overcoming all challenges.
From the very first days of the full-scale war, the United Kingdom became one of Ukraine's key strategic partners, not only supplying weapons but also creating effective financial and institutional support mechanisms of support.
The United Kingdom will continue to resolutely apply our financial sanctions as part of our broader response to Russia's barbaric invasion of Ukraine.
The United Kingdom has established an important system of military assistance to Ukraine, financing innovative funds, international partnerships, credit mechanisms, and support for the Ukrainian defense industrial complex.
It is Russia, not Ukraine, that should pay for Putin's illegal war. The use of Russian assets to strengthen Ukraine's air defense. Our right to Ukraine's security is critically important to us.
The UK Ministry of Defence has signed contracts with companies for the maintenance of armoured vehicles, the production of artillery shells, and the repair of transferred weapons. These contracts provide for the deployment of repair facilities on Ukrainian territory. It was the United Kingdom that became one of the first countries to supply Ukraine with high-precision missile weaponry. A real breakthrough was the decision to supply long-range Storm Shadow missiles. In 2023, the British government announced the transfer of cruise missiles capable of striking targets at distances of more than 250 kilometers. Storm Shadow became the first long-range missiles received by Ukraine and were immediately used to strike strategic targets in the occupied territories. This month, the armed forces of Ukraine received a new batch of Storm Shadow missiles. The United Kingdom provided the Ukrainian armed forces with protective gear, vehicles, communications equipment, demining support, as well as assistance with equipment maintenance and digital transformation. Britain became the first country to announce plans to supply Ukraine with main battle tanks.
Compared to the T-80, the stabilization and optics here are much better. Aiming is done using buttons on a panel similar to a joystick. The turret rotates 360 degrees in 9 seconds. The Challenger 2 maneuvers, making it difficult for enemy anti-tank guided missiles to aim. At the same time, the tank itself is very accurate, as
part of the Challenger 2 tank deliveries, shells for them were also received. The British tanks were supplemented with specialized repair and recovery vehicles, which made it possible to ensure their technical autonomy in use. In 2025, an agreement on a century-long partnership was signed between Ukraine and Britain. This comprehensive document establishes long-term cooperation between the two countries in the fields of defense, economy, energy, justice, science, culture, education, healthcare, and social policy. Britain's assistance is long-term, so we can always count on the support of a reliable partner.
That's all for now. And for more hot news from the front, tune into our next episode.